Hello, this is Michael Hexter, and welcome to Politics 2100 here on YouTube. So, this episode I'm calling Leftist Ethics is Based in Macroethics, comma, the Ethics of Living in and Changing Systems. So, in this episode, I'm taking a step back and trying to create a space in political and also economic discourse for discussing ethics, not just on a personal level, but also on what I'm calling a macroethical level. So often the word ethics is applied to individual behavior, to it's used in professional organizations or in government. For instance, there are ethics review boards that look at the usually behavior of individuals, occasionally the behavior of groups of individuals, but more likely it's applied to each individual. And so I would say, though, that there is also, and this is something I've written about, I wrote about 10 years ago, there's something called macroethics. So within the philosophical discourses called ethics, there are there's a couple different ways to cut it or look at it. One of them is there are the three main ethical, meta-ethical schools or super schools. One of them is called consequentialism, one is called deontology, one is called virtue ethics. And then sort of across that, or the different angle to that, is what I'm calling microethics and macroethics. So in a way, in macroethics, you're looking at how groups of individuals and how the systems that evolve when groups of individuals form a society, how one makes decisions that affect the course of those systems and also one's participation in those systems. So it's it's another view of ethics, and it's also a heterodox view, or it's not the typical view of how people think of ethics. It's when people think of ethics, they think of, did you behave right or wrong according to some rules, or there are also other ethical schools. Was there a good outcome to your actions, or bad outcomes to those actions, or are you instilling good principles and are you good features, good characteristics in other people? Are you that's a virtue ethics is about either developing one's own virtue or the virtue of other people. This is kind of a language that sounds maybe a little bit old-fashioned or whatever it is, or abstract. But I think it's helpful to take a step back from political discourses or economic discourses and try to at least think for a few minutes or whatever about what one thinks is the good, is the highest good, and also how you might achieve that. That's getting away from ethics and more into actual technology, or into politics, or other, or discourse, or language, communication, all those different things. So anyway, and there's some pretty clear definition, or sort of, to take us anyway. Macroethics is the specialty of the left. So a true leftist discourse is about macroethics, is about systems and changing systems, disrupting systems. Or if you think have created this socialist or revolutionary social system, it's about managing those systems, it's about enlarging them, whatever it is. But the a leftist approach, more than a liberal left or a centrist approach, is about systems and living within systems. And to give you sort of one example that is close to my area of focus here and in other contexts. The There are people who say that climate action is only about changing our system, changing capitalism, or overthrowing capitalism, and or some other large system, extractivism, colonialism, and that is the main focus of climate action, or action towards sustainability. And then there are other approaches that look at how you individually behave, what you consume, what you produce, where you work, so forth and so on. And that is the focus of those discourses, those people, so forth and so on. And that is a microethics. So you see, there's a macroethics, which is about changing systems, and there's a microethics. So it's quite handy, at least in my opinion, to be able to make this distinction. And it allows you to look at, also to discuss I hope in a more reasoned way, what your differences of opinion are with other people in politics, by talking about what is your vision for the good society or the better society, and then how does that differ from another person's, and then you could maybe come to some agreement about what measures you both would take, even though you have a difference of opinion about that great vision of what it is you want. And so and often also microethics is often used against people who are working toward a macroethical goal, or focused on macroethics. So it's often the case that not only just right-wing trolls, but also other people who are interested in cutting down another person for a number of reasons. Maybe they claim to be leftist or whatever it is, but they look at that person's activities and what they say, what they do, and they think they are hypocrites, or they try to make them appear in a personal level hypocritical. And some of this is often thrown at people like I know Al Gore was often one person who was I'm dating myself if I talk about Al Gore, but also AOC is a target of much criticism from people who claim to be on the left, and then also from the right wing, and people are trying to undercut, for instance, the project of a Green New Deal by saying, well, look, you took a flight, or you were seen eating a hamburger somewhere. I'm making that one up. And so, therefore, you are a hypocrite. Therefore, your macroethical goals and your vision for a better society are for naught. And I think, also in economics, so taking other examples, the micro and macro distinction is I did a recent video about austerity, the politics of austerity, or about the Capital Order by Clara Mattei, and that the economics that she criticizes most strongly within that book is an economics that mixes up the microethical and the macroethical. So their economics is based on, there's ethical arguments within economics hidden within it that are made to seem to be scientific, but really are arguments about who is a good person, okay, and who are the better people, and who are the better people that should be emulated as economic actors. And this is a microethics that covers up the macroethics that we need to be working on. And so the system to study to change systems, either whether to overthrow them or to manage them well, or to tweak them, or to reform them radically, you need to understand them in great detail. You need to study them. You need to know their history. You need to know the purposes they serve. And it requires effort, okay? And someone coming in from the outside wanting to, sensing that you are their opponent, or knowing that you are their opponent, or them being paid to oppose you for whatever reason, or feeling like it's in their best interest to oppose you, they will attempt to pick at you and find little things about your lifestyle, or things you've said or done that are minor, or not really in proportion to all the other things you do and say, and all the work that you've done. And they attempt to make that that's everything about you, and that so they deny that there's anything serious. There's not any serious macroethics. This is also, the right wing is particularly attracted to this, and I don't think intellectually some of them can conceive of or have the patience. It requires a little bit of a delay of gratification to be able to think in terms of macroethics, in terms of how things fit together and work together, and that we may be coming to a shades of gray solution, not a black and white, or not a good bad solution. We may be working more in a shade of gray, getting to a better place, either slowly or fast, whatever it is, but by understanding the complexity of society, the different actors involved, the many different kinds of people involved. So in that way, macroethics is something that's hard for those people, and they, because it's hard, they deny that it exists or that it's important. And the whole video would seem to be a bunch of blah 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 to them, because what they're looking for is, we want to get to the hard no of whatever you're doing, and the hard no will be to discover that you are, in a minor way, or in their mind a major way, but anyway, in a minor way, hypocritical, or not living your life. You claim to have ethics, or you claim to be moral, but look at you, you're not perfect. And that is a major line of attack. Okay, that's a major, and it's not a particularly, for someone who's listening to what I'm saying, it's and who believes, who can agree that we live in systems, and we will continue to live in systems, and we can change those systems, we can manage those systems in different ways. The systems are economic or political, so forth and so on. And that requires work and effort and thought. That if you come to agreement on all those things, then you would say, well, something like macroethics makes sense. We need to have a sense of the will, the desire to do better, the will, the desire to work toward the good, and to avoid the bad where possible. But on the other hand, macroethics, we can't exhaust ourselves in any given moment, because the systems are big, and so as individuals, we don't have individually the power to change those systems. There are people who are seated in positions of power that have more power, and let's hope that those people are responsive to democratic accountability, and also orient themselves to that form of accountability. But I think that one of the smartest things that Marx said, or Marx wrote. He wrote it in the 18th Brumaire of Louis Bonaparte, um, where he said, people make history, but under conditions that are not of their own choosing. And so that suggests some of what I'm talking about. Unfortunately, Marx didn't always, elaborate his thinking according to this idea of individual agency, but within historical bounds and within systemic bounds. But that's what when I read that, that's what I think, and there is more of a sense. There is a sense that people who follow in Marx's footsteps, who have learned from him, or who are post-Marxist or Marxist, whatever it is, and there's a general influence of his thinking on the left, and also even slightly beyond it. That macroethics, which they don't call macroethics, but the idea of systems and changing systems is all that matters, and individual ethics doesn't matter. Meanwhile, it does matter. So, for instance, in this dispute between people who think, we should only be focused on changing systems and not on individual, like household, management in terms of sustainability and so forth and so on. I think you can do some of both. I don't think you can be perfect in either. So you're not choosing the conditions under which you're making your history, but you're working towards something, and you could be more focused on your and maybe other people individual acts, and you might think, they can't be my friend if they eat meat, or if they fly, or so forth and so on, and that's your choice. On the other hand, you can say, well, each of us is working with our individual history, so forth and so on, and I feel like they're generally, they're respecting me, I'm respecting them, and we can work together on some issues of mutual interest and commitment. But anyway, so I think that distinction between the importance of macro and micro, I think they're both important. I think also, some of the disasters associated with communism and Marxism, the throughout the 20th century, and largely in the 20th century, in the middle to late 20th century, have to do with the lack of a recognition within Marxism and Marxism-Leninism and Maoism and so forth and so on, of the role of individual ethics, and the role but also of macroethics too. In other words, that ethics is something that you engage in, that comes from people's individual commitments and personalities and so forth and so on, that need to be taken into account, and it also can't be there also can't be a total. You can also exhaust yourself if you try to be quote unquote perfect, or in ethical senses, because it's you live in these constraints, but you can be working on it, and you can be changing things. So anyway, so I'm putting this video out as kind of a placeholder for future discussions where I can get more specific about individual issues, and I can use this word macroethics and refer to this video if it makes sense. But I just wanted to put this out there, and also, if you have a particular interest in any of those topics I brought up, or just this general topic, please comment below. Please like the video if you did like it, and also please subscribe to Politics 2100 if you're getting something out of these videos. Anyway, look forward to seeing you in the next video.